Wanderers has introduced itself beautifully in regards to its main symphonic intro, which is not a surprise considering Visions of Atlantis is credited as a symphonic power and melodic metal with, as I understand, central emphasis on the symphonic vibe, at least from what's been communicated to me in just general perusing, or maybe even for some comments, I forget exactly, but I have seen that attributed in other places, and they've lived up to that. With such exquisite finesse, I thought that opener was quite good, and it's reminiscent of other types of European talents where I've seen the same structure at play, right? I couldn't help making a comparison to Zandria as well, a never favorite of mine, that we entertained together on this channel in terms of first introduction via their most recent album. In fact, the symphonic interlude, right, with Two Worlds, I couldn't help but experience a bit of a connection vibe with that to Release My Symphony. And automatically, at least on the name, you trigger a pull with me, because I'm a big symphonic metal guy. So, instant attraction, right? But here we continue on our journey down the sophomore, our sophomore album and experience, right? Not theirs in lineup, but this is the second album I'm humoring from Visions of Atlantis, which has been, as many of you know, a mainstay name in my comment section. I frequently regard your recommendations, and I'm happy to, because they've been in bountiful supply, number one. But every artist that I've consulted at this point of the European attribution, this one of an Austrian basis, and my first in terms of a group in that respect, they've been quite enamoring, and I've loved the journey thus far. Our first time together with The Deep in the Dark, and those first four pieces we had the experience perhaps together of listening to as a first introduction. Maybe some of you, I know many of you are approaching this again on a familiar basis with them, and of course I welcome your company, but maybe some of you are taking a mutual path, and you know, I've never, you yourself are probably like, I've never humored Visions of Atlantis before, right? Maybe you've heard the name. And here's somebody else venturing down the route for himself. I mean, what a cool journey. And I love it about music, right? Providing you a bit of a mutual experience for you to explore good art as well, simultaneously to me. I love music. You know, as I've said many times, it's a favorite art form in my life. My predominant love among the artistic languages, and being able to highlight it has been a long-time aspiration, and to do so with such notable and honorary talents like Visions of Atlantis. I can't say it enough. I feel honored to be able to be graced by so many strong presences in the music world, especially in European regard. If you've never stepped foot, I recommend it. Many of you know it's a favorite place, especially for this channel's destinations. Like, we come back here a lot, but there's just so much artistry in that realm of the world. And it's always just exquisite to listen to so many groups of unique application, but sufficient efficacy of vision, no pun intended, and craftsmanship. Visions of Atlantis has maintained that. Release My Symphony, a perfect testament. Quite a varied symphonic metal work for sure in the range of what I've heard, but it's sort of like a hodgepodge of familiar common elements from other groups mixed together with a unique vision, right? Different types of structures, beautiful vocal delivery, again, on behalf of both Michelle and Clementine, great balance and association. Just an exquisite work to humor alongside you, and maybe this will be your first entrance. Maybe that's, you know, where you approach, right? I would recommend going back, at least in the pieces we've humored together, and considering Visions of Atlantis from that point, right? And expanding on their back catalog as well. I'm going to do that after I finish coverage with you in terms of experiencing their works for the first time, at least a selection of them. But maybe this will be your first step. Maybe into the European metal foray specifically. If so, I welcome you, and I hope you are inspired to follow suit, like me. A frequent standing down not just the Visions of Atlantis path, but the path of just good music. I love highlighting it here, and we have another example to be a testament to that. And I'm sure the continuation of Wanderers as an album, as it evolves, will maintain the same level of adoration that I have for the first album we were introduced to via The Deep in the Dark. We're going to continue on. Heroes of the Dawn. I like that name. Let me confirm really fast if that is in fact the, I think it's the second track in terms of the album. I just want to be sure I'm offering, yes, a credible point. It is. All right, so our second journey into Wanderers, which is started well. Let's see how it continues. I'm sure it'll be good. Sounds like a flute startup. Ooh, nice. I was gonna say a bit of like a Celtic flair, at least in the initiation. Celtic, German, there's a bit of a similarity there too. It's soft though, I love it. The delivery on this is great. So much passion and strength. That was delivered beautifully. Again, the extra emphasis, and now we have the vocal pairing, the hybrid. I love how this is pictured, by the way. It's soft, dainty, but again, it continues on that paradise-like artifice that makes it such an endearing view. So natural. It's an exquisite picture. This is, I would definitely say, by my familiarity, it takes on a bit of a softer approach into symphonic territory for sure, but it has that traditional foundation of more of like a dominant hard rock root. The trail, that was beautiful. Nice background insertion of an almost a choir-like simulator. Just a gentle whisper. It's a good drift. And again, I've acknowledged before the interplay between power and symphonic metal with them. They strike a good balance. It feels like a fun association. It isn't in any way obstructed or disruptive. It's faithful. It's the power metal that carries on against traditional metal root feels. Even though the dominant preference is to maintain again a symphonic foundation. Nice mix. I love the cutoff there. It's just so natural in the feed. It really does feel so German. I love it though. That's gorgeous. Or was that a flute or is it more of like a bagpipe? It could be either. It's kind of, you know, as I said many times, musical connoisseur, not a musician by trade. So forgive me if maybe again I'm getting some of my attributions incorrect. That's why I welcome the comment section down below. I would love some clarification on the instrumental application there. It was a good sound effect, and again carries on that European feel for sure. This is a definitively gentle piece, right? Which might be, again, as I've said in consideration of the last album as well, there's a general mix. And that's what I was hoping to see in terms of, again, getting a robust perspective and a bit of a wider vision, right? I dug back intentionally to get a good feel for this. We've had numbers that have erred a little more into a troublesome manner, at least on tone, or maybe some that are a little more pleasant. We've had some that have taken on a more aggressive route, and then others that are more ballad-centric. This one and, what was the one on the last album? The concluding one we looked at, The Last Home. This one and that piece. Well, this is kind of more, well, this one mixes better, I think, into the end tonally, right? Because this piece is more like, I'd say, a middle ground feel on the rock. The conclusions and the intro with that, I think it's like a flute or a bagpipe origin, the way it comes in, right? Where it's a soft opener. It's a soft footing, but then eventually it builds. It's gradual. The Last Home was like that, right? It starts at more of like a ballad temptation, but then instantly amplifies its sound. This is similar, though it is a little more statically positioned, again, in revering that traditional hard rock emphasis. And again, demonstrating a beautiful mix between symphonic or melodic metal with a power metal insertion too. It feels completely natural. And again, that's where the mainstream feel on the metal regard kicks in with those riff structures. That's fun. And I think it was good placement as well for a break. It made sense. The balance, though, again, I think in terms of like the main vibe of this song for me, at the very least maybe the key ambition, is the vocal harmony on behalf of both Michel and Clementine. It's an even balance. Like, it doesn't feel... Sometimes you'll find two artists that might overlap, right? And there might be somewhat of a... It might feel... It's on a case-by-case basis that we see this in appearance, right? Sometimes you see artists that maybe are not as complementary to one another, whereas in other cases there's a steady flow, and the two feel completely harmonious. This, it's an even blend, right? You have Clementine's vocals, which rise more into a higher inflection, but then you have as well Michel that also can get to that higher root. Clementine is, again, understandably reaches a bit of a higher octave range, for sure, but his voice is so gentle that the two intermix completely on style. And then when you blend in the symphonic edge, it just feels so natural for the piece to segue in that direction. I like the softness of this piece. I'm curious to see, you know, I'm much more admittedly of a, I've said this many times, my tastes do tend to prefer the more aggressive, at least a metal articulation, but I do keep an open door intentionally to experience, you know, talent abroad in different types of fields of songs, scopes. I sometimes like a ballad number, and I like the direction of this, again, blended with such a beautiful naturalistic imagery setting. It's perfect. I mean, again, I just love watching anything European because it's just so bedazzling. The Last Home was like this. So many similarities, right, to bring it maybe between works. This one as well. So many nature shots, peaceful, telling this enchanting story with great builds, just beautiful precision. It's just fun to entertain their works. And it's so cool, again, to see the mixture, though, of application, right? The variance, even within a symphonic flair. Right? I've seen other groups maybe are a little more centralized in where they go. Maybe there's one specific direction they'll take within a certain genre. And there's others that may, you know, venture around a bit, right? This group seems to have a bit of a wider net. And I like seeing that wide applicability because it means we're going to have some, sure, I'm totally confident in saying this, future works we're going to entertain are going to show a bit of a mixture of ability. They have so far, and what I'm hearing, I like seeing the execution and mastery of what Visions of Atlantis offers, and I hope many of you would express the same. I know many of you longtime fans, I'm sure, would, but for those of you who are first-time listeners who took the journey with me, what are your thoughts on Heroes of the Dawn? It's a beautiful piece, quite sentimental, at least in my opinion. But music is a subjective experience, right? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below and your point of approach if you do wish to disclose that, whether you happen to be a longtime fan or this is a first impression for you. So far, we're doing very well in terms of the development of a new album. This one takes on a bit of a softer artifice for sure, although the opener was strong. And again, huge variance in that introductory number. So I'm curious to see the evolution as we continue on with the next piece being track number 3 on the album, Nothing Lasts Forever. A bit tragic. I could see it venturing maybe different ways on sentimentality. We'll have to see when we approach that work, but this one was good. A nice fun stop in terms of our journey, our early days journey thus far, right, in the selection I've picked. But a fun one for our sophomore album of experience of Visions of Atlantis, and it is quite an honor to be able to now call myself a fan of their work and be introduced. I hope you feel the same as well. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.